Now to take this further, we are being joined by David Dunn, who is a professor of international politics at University of Birmingham. He joins us live from England. Mr. Dunn, thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us here on WION. You must have heard this saying, truth is the first casualty in a war. Do you think the killing of innocent civilians is the only way Israel can actually end Hamas in Gaza?
Well, that, of course, is the crux of this whole controversy. And the fact that 34,000 civilians have been killed in the Gaza Strip, for most observers, is an indication that the Israelis have used excessive force. They have not put the protection of civilians as a high priority that it should be in international law. That what they have done, according to most observers, is to prioritize the safety and protection of their own army. And in doing so, they've prosecuted a war by bombing flat most of the built-up areas in the Gaza Strip, with the consequence that it's killed huge amounts of civilians and created a massive humanitarian crisis, because the population there are living in tents. They have no means of food supply. And in addition to that, the Israelis are alleged to have prevented the normal flow of supplies into the Gaza Strip by a whole variety of obstacles they put in their way, which effectively has resulted in widespread famine in the Palestinian territory. And it's those reasons that the international court and indeed international public opinion more broadly has turned against the way in which Israel has pursued this war. Right. Initially, there was a huge amount of sympathy, and now there's a huge amount of condemnation.
Professor Dunn, there is no doubt that the conflict in Gaza is extremely complex. Therefore, the truth coming out of Gaza is even more complex. But in the face of that, how much power do you think the International Court of Justice actually has, and what the ICC is saying?
Well, there's two aspects to that. I mean, we have had occasions where individuals have ended up in court and been prosecuted. General Pinochet from Chile, Slobodan Milosevic from former Yugoslavia did end up in court. But the main purpose of this is to actually offer to make comments about this in a way which shows international condemnation of this action. It's a political, it's a symbolic, it's a moral condemnation as much as it's an expectation of resulting in them being in court.
Just quickly interjecting, moral. You called it that this is more of a moral and symbolic reaction to what's happening in Gaza. But do you think that's enough, given what's happening?
Well, it's limited by the fact that it's unlikely that Netanyahu will leave Israel and travel to countries where he is likely to be arrested. It's the same with Putin, and who has under the same accusations of criminality of breaching international law. And therefore, it's better than nothing, as the argument goes, even though it's unlikely that they will end up in court.
Professor Dunn, very quickly, I know this is a tough question, but there have been calls for a post-war plan for Gaza. Just last week, in fact, the defense chief in Israel called on Netanyahu to publicly rule out Israeli governance over the Strip. In your assessment, how will a post-war Gaza look like?
Well, I think what this will mean is an international stewardship, guardianship of the area. And Saudi Arabia and its Gulf allies are already working on plans for the international governance and rebuilding of Gaza as part of a wider Middle East settlement, and indeed recognition of Israel and Saudi Arabia of each other, and a mutual defense treaty with the United States. So there are huge international efforts at pace, looking for an international settlement of Israel's position within the Middle East, and as part of that, a recognition of a Palestinian state and rebuilding Gaza under a new form of governance.
Absolutely, Professor Dunn, that is the hope. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on WION and getting us all those insights.
Always a pleasure.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.